Time now for the news review segment. We get to have a conversation on some topical issues and invite you to join us with your own perspectives, your thoughts, your comments and contributions. The show is interactive, so join us via WhatsApp number on your screens. We're streaming live on Facebook as well as YouTube. We're very engaging, very interactive on X and on Instagram. And we have some exclusive video content for you on TikTok as well. So do well to follow, to subscribe, to share, and don't forget to hit the like button. But while at it, drop a comment under the live feed. My gentlemen are here in the studio. They are seated. We'll get straight into the introductions and then we'll begin the conversation. Elvis Dakon is the editor of the News Center newspaper as well as the web portal newscenter.com. Elvis, good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning.
Dr. Samuel Ayer is a presidential staffer and he speaks for the National Democratic Congress, NDC. Doc, good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning. Good to see you too.
We haven't seen you this year. Hope all is well.
By God's grace.
Very well, very well. Ibrahim Ajay is the resident country director, International Investments LLC, and a regular on a Monday morning. Ibrahim, good morning.
A very good morning to you, Nana.
Good to see you as well. Right, let's get into our issues. A number of issues to unpack this morning. We begin from the cocoa sector. Some sweeping reforms were announced by the finance minister last week following an emergency cabinet meeting. Subsequently, we've heard from various stakeholders, the minority in parliament, some cocoa farmers, some farmer associations and the likes. This morning, we want to look at these reforms and see how it best addresses the challenge that we're facing. So I'll start off with you, Elvis. Topical among the reforms that were announced is the price cuts. And the farmers seem very unhappy with this particular price cut. But would we rather not take a cut than nothing at all?
Thank you for the opportunity. I think that the price cut is just a rip-off and an injustice to every cocoa farmer in the country.
Really?
Of course. And the reason is simple. Cocoa farmers grow their cocoa. And the Ghana government makes a law that you can't sell the cocoa by yourself. Somebody produced this water, is selling it. The government of Ghana is not telling the person that you can't sell this yourself. When you go and harvest your plantain, cassava, maize, all other farm produce, the government of Ghana has no business telling you that you can't sell it to the international market yourself and that sell it to government for government to go and sell for you. So by that law, the country has prevented cocoa farmers from getting the full amount for their produce. We've implemented this policy for decades. And one of the promises in that policy is that we have been giving cocoa farmers between 60 to 70% of the free on-board price, which means that when you buy the cocoa, the price at which it's sold on the international market, we give 70% to the farmer. And the cocoa board, which does not grow the cocoa, who does not own the cocoa, pocket the 30% of the amount from the world market. Cocoa board, just an institution set up, is not the one growing the cocoa, but it pockets 30% of the amount. And out of the money they pocket, they come up with all kinds of policies. Sometimes some government will come and say free fertilizer. Some will come and say subsidized chemicals and fertilizers and all kinds of things that they say they have been using them 30% of the money they are pocketing for. And as part of that money they are keeping, one of the promises to the farmers is that they will get a guaranteed price through what we call forward sales.
Yeah.
So when the cocoa is sold, and the farmer gets 70%, cocoa board pockets the 30%. The understanding is that when the price of cocoa even drops after the producer price is announced, that decline will not affect the cocoa farmer. It will not affect the cocoa farmer because the decision to use forward sales and the 30% cocoa board is keeping to themselves, is supposed to be a risk mitigation factor that in the event that the price of cocoa goes down even in the international market, after the farm gate price has been announced, the cocoa farmer should not suffer.
Right.
And this is the policy we have done all these years. So several governments have experienced cocoa being sold below the agreed price after the producer price has been announced. But the governments have to absorb the difference because the promise is that the decline should not affect the cocoa farmer. The same time, if the price goes up, the cocoa farmer doesn't even benefit. But if Cocoa Board, at the time the price has gone up, still have some beans that it has not actually given a sign off under the forward sales, but decide to maybe keep a percentage that it will sell under spot sales, it means that Cocoa Board actually makes more money.
True.
When the price should skyrocket. So for government to decide that they are going to reduce the price of cocoa after announcing the producer price, simply because price has gone down in the world market, the question is, so the 30% that Cocoa Board has been taking, which is not their money, is the cocoa farmer's money. And the normal circumstance, if we allow the cocoa farmer to go and sell his or her own cocoa, just as somebody will go and sell their granite, their maize and everything, that 100% of whatever the price is going to the cocoa farmer. So the 30% that Cocoa Board has been keeping all these years, the question, what has happened to that money? Why is it that this time around we cannot mitigate the risk? Then what's the purpose of the cocoa farmer losing 30% to Cocoa Board every year? So there are critical questions we must ask that nobody should say, why are the farmers complaining? We have shortchanged the farmers for too long. Every year, Cocoa Board by just law takes 30% of the amount from the world market and gives 70% to the cocoa farmer. So if there is a drop this time round, there's no reason, there's no justifiable reason why the farmer should take a hit.
Will the farmers be able to on their own sell on the international market?
Who said they can't sell? Why? Don't we have so many products people sell to the international market? Even what do you call it? Metals. The rotten metals that the boys
scrap
do,
metals.
the scrap metals. Are people not exporting it to countries outside this country and making money? So who said that they can't sell the cocoa to the international market themselves? There are so many products in this country people export to the international market and make money. People sell their palm oil to the international market. Who determines that a percentage of the money should go to somebody? So you see, for me, if the farmer is to take a hit, that means that we have to just close down Cocoa Board, okay? So that the farmer sell his own cocoa, so that when the price goes down, the farmer knows that nobody is taking any money from what I am gaining. It is the world market that has gone down. Do you understand it? And then when the price goes up, the farmer also takes the benefit. Then the farmer knows that I am exposed to the full risk of price drop and increase on the international market.
Right.
But when we have a process and a system that should have mitigated the risk for the cocoa farmer, and now there's a price decline, and that system is unable to offer that risk, I believe that we have not been fair to the cocoa farmer. And I believe and trust that the government is listening. I think that if the NDC government wants to have any chance in the next elections, they should reconsider this decision. Because governments in the past have actually absorbed cocoa price decline and giving the cocoa farmer what they are due. But if for the first time in my recent memory, and some of the cocoa farmers said they've never seen some before, that the price will decline to that level, and now you are passing on the decline to the farmer. I think that, to me, it's unfair because for several years, for decades, Cocoa Board has been taking 30% of money that they didn't work for. It is not their product. The farmers do their own farm, get their beans, and by law, you just take 30% of all their money every year. So if we have consistently taken 30% of cocoa farmers their money every year, how come that if there's a price decline, we are saying that they can't benefit from it? When we agree the farm gate price, okay, it is accumulation, they call it the average price. So it means that they look at the previous years, how much cocoa was sold, they put the figures together and they determine the average price.
Right.
And so, okay, this average price cocoa has been sold, and therefore the farm gate price is going to be like this. And then if you do the forward sales, you have actually sold the cocoa ahead of time because you agreed with international buyers and picked the international loans to be able to pay for it. So if we have been doing all these things, and for the first time, now we are actually shortchanging cocoa farmers by these margins. It is, to me, an injustice to the cocoa farmer. And as I said, if we have decided that the cocoa farmer should take the risk, then the cocoa farmer should also take the full benefit of the total amount of the world market. Right. So in that case, if cocoa goes to 10,000, the cocoa farmer gets 10,000 for a ton of cocoa. If it comes to 1,000, the cocoa farmer knows that it is 1,000. That's what I'm selling it. But in a situation where at any price that the cocoa is sold, Cocoa Board is taking 30% of that amount. It's the worst thing we have done to cocoa farmers. This time, the justification is that the new price is 90% of the FOB price. My friend, it is not justifiable, because the last increase, 2024, 2025, 4,200 was the average price used for a ton. Yeah. But the farmers got 3,100. We are getting 4,200, the same amount in dollars this time round, and the farmer is getting 2,587. See, we should not do things that will make the cocoa farmer angry to a point where cocoa will lose its strength in Ghana. Because, see, cocoa has been the backbone of this economy for so many years. So I think that whatever it takes, if we want to protect cocoa, and we all know the impact Galamsey and the rest are having, I think that the cocoa farmer does not deserve this hit. Government should reverse the decision. Let them take the money. Government should find money and pay. And government should make sure that Cocoa Board make good use of the 30% that is been keeping, which is farmers their money. It's not Cocoa Board's money. All right. It is farmers their money that you have been keeping, that you are the regulator of the sector, and that you are going to provide certain support to the farmers. For that reason, you want to keep 30%. 30% of cocoa sales in a year, my brother, it's a lot of money. Look at the amounts we are being told. We are being told that have even been paid, even in all these difficulties. Cocoa Board is saying that they paid about 45 billion for the cocoa beans they have bought already. Yet we are still saying that there's a huge quantity to be bought. So if you look at the amounts that we are talking about, and Cocoa Board every year keeps 30% of that money, why is it that Cocoa Board should be broke? Why are we being told that Cocoa Board is A, B, C, D? Because people have turned Cocoa Board into a procurement center, and then they are making money, and the farmer is the one that is suffering. All right, and therefore, for me, there's no justification at all. There's no justification at all for this reduction. I think that the 3,600 should be given to the farmer. Government should find money to make sure that the difference is paid. All the 30% Cocoa Board has been keeping, government should make sure that that 30%, the money comes from there to pay for the difference.
All right, thank you. Doc, your thoughts on the reforms and the response.
Thank you very much. Good morning to you once again and my co-panelists. I think that what has happened, as far as these reforms are concerned, clearly not desirable, yet very important for the future of Cocoa Board and for the farmers. Let me use this platform to sympathize and empathize with our dear cocoa farmers whose efforts over the years have made sure that Ghana's economy always benefits from the huge foreign exchange that cocoa generates for this country. Let's put that on record. True. Clearly, government is not happy about it. If it is about a government that has shown true commitment to cocoa farmers in the last 1 year that we have been in government, it will be the NDC government. You recall that when we were in opposition, we made a solemn promise to cocoa farmers that they deserve 70% of international market price. Is that not it? True. When we came, and international market price of cocoa went to about 7,200. Did we not give 5,040 out of that to cocoa farmers? We did so. You did. That promise was kept.
But there was the other promise of a 6,000.
So, see, people do not put the whole conversation in a certain context.
Okay.
When we made that promise, international market price of cocoa was $10,000 at the time. $9,000 to $10,000.
Okay.
At the time, it was $10,000. In fact, and I'm surprised recently the MPP themselves have now suddenly become lovers of cocoa farmers. When international market price of cocoa was $10,000 at the time, using the then exchange rate, it was 166,000 Ghana cedis. per ton, 10,000 Ghana cedis per bag. Do you know what they give farmers? They give farmers only 3,000 Ghana cedis, 100 per bag. You are selling it at 10,000 cedis on the international market, but you are giving cocoa farmers 3,100 Ghana cedis, 30% of the amount. Then you suddenly come to accuse the government that comes into power in just 1 year, within that 1 year, gives cocoa farmers 70% of the amount. Suddenly, you want to create the impression that you love cocoa farmers more than almost everyone. We were in this country when they actually cancelled free fertilizer and seedlings and what have you for cocoa farmers. Nobody spoke a word. But you see, that is just by the way. You see, the point is that what is happening to the cocoa sector did not just spring up in just 1 year. It has been a culmination of several years of financial mismanagement and malfeasance, which has changed cocoa board from the then strategic bulwark that we know to a situation where cocoa board does not even have any buffers. Do you know that government had to pump additional over $946 million to bridge the gap for the rollover that the cocoa board at the time left for this government? $1 billion. Because they forward sold about 786,000 metric tons of cocoa, which they couldn't deliver. 786,000, they were able to deliver only 432,000, leaving 333,000 for government. At the time, they forward sold it at $2,600 per ton. At the time, the international market at the time was about $6,000. Government had to cough in additional $500 per ton in order to salvage the institution and being able to sell it and deliver in that contractual agreement. Government was able to do that. In fact, as we speak, because of the reform that we have done, government has been able to rationalize cocoa board's debts as far as cocoa roast alone is concerned. 26 billion cocoa roast debts. 21 billion out of that was accrued between 2018 and 2021. 3 years. Government has been able to rationalize it to 4.35 billion and has taken the debts overhang from cocoa board to roast ministry.
Yeah.
Government has
the finance ministry.
Yes, and government has been able to demonstrate that commitment. What is government saying? President Mama is saying that the usual funding that we used to do for cocoa board, let us change it. Now, government intends to raise domestic bonds, cocoa bonds, so that we can locally produce money, get money to fund cocoa board activities.
But can cocoa board now go onto the international market to borrow?
So the reason why that is possible is that we need to clean the books of cocoa board.
True. Because that instance is not credit worthy.
That is the reason why they are rationalizing cocoa board's debts, so that we can diversify it and give some to roast ministry, finance ministry, and leave cocoa board in a manner that we will be able to get those bonds. And so that's why I'm saying that it is painful, but it is good for the future of cocoa board. Now we are saying that Ghana's cocoa processing company, which over the years have been neglected, is going to be revived. And a new cocoa board bill is going to be laid in parliament, such that President Mahama has made it clear that we are going to implement an automatic adjustment of producer price to align with the international market price and the exchange rate at the time. Just like President Mahama said. So 70% of that will be given to cocoa farmers, just like he did in 2025. And so you can argue that, of course, what has happened now is distasteful, it's not good. But where did they start from? How is it that in 2024, where the value of cocoa had its highest peak, at a point went to $13,000, but that is the year cocoa board recorded its highest debts or loss, over 4 billion Ghana cedis. These are questions people should be telling us. You understand the point I'm making? Yeah. So really, when we overly simplify the matter, it becomes. I heard Mr. Elvis saying that over the years, cocoa board has always been getting 30%, and cocoa farmers are getting 70%. Meanwhile, I told you that in 2024, the farmers got only 30%. Why did that happen? At the time, the 2023-2024 cocoa season, at the time Ghana was giving 2,070 Ghana cedis per bag. Togo was doing 4,400. That was what led to the situation where people had to smuggle cocoa from Ghana to Togo and Ivory Coast. They smuggled it. So cocoa board projection, they couldn't meet it. 45% deviation from it. Nobody wants to talk about it. People want to, sweep all these things under the carpet and suddenly want to blame a government that comes in a new government that comes in just a year and decides to do massive reforms for the future of cocoa board.
That those who argue that the reforms are actually targeted at cocoa board and not the farmer who should actually benefit.
In terms of I don't.
There are those who argue that all the reforms are aimed at strengthening cocoa board, reviving cocoa board, making cocoa board sustainable, making cocoa board viable.
Yes, because cocoa board needs to be viable in order to be financially strong, to absorb shocks to the benefit of cocoa farmers. Can you imagine that the $1 billion that government had to cough up to bridge the gap in terms of the rollover that happened? Can you imagine if that money was not pumped? Would it not be enough money to absorb the shock that we are presently facing? So you need to hold cocoa board in a way, a manner that when external shocks come, cocoa board can protect the farmer. Today, cocoa board is sitting there. They don't have any shocks. They don't have any buffers. Anything that comes into this country, farmers will suffer. You understand the point? But I have told you that government has shown more than enough commitment to cocoa farmers. Just like I demonstrated to you. Government is bringing back free fertilizer, free seedlings, scholarship for children of cocoa farmers and what have you. Any debate can be sustained. That of course it is painful, and the farmers agree. I've heard a lot of farmers. I've seen videos where these farmers are actually explaining and are saying that they understand exactly what has happened. They know the prices of cocoa on the international market. They knew that something like that will happen, but they are even happy that government has been able to communicate to them. Government is putting in place measures to build cocoa board so that in the future cocoa board can also protect their interests and plight. We cannot bury our heads in the sand like ostriches and pretend as if in only 1 year there is an intentional agenda to destroy cocoa board and what have you. Meanwhile, over the years, we know what has happened. We know how much of debt has been accrued in cocoa board, completely destroying whatever buffer that they had. You understand the point I'm making? So I am gratified that at the very least, these reforms are going to make sure that our local indigenous, licensed buying companies like cocoa processing company and what have you will now be brought on stream. That at the end of the day, we are going to have 50% of our cocoa produce being processed in Ghana, just like exactly the president has directed. More employments are going to be given, more foreign exchange and liquidity is going to be accrued in our system, cocoa board processing companies and whatever. More young people will get jobs. But it must be put on record that government has keen interest in making sure that the plight of the cocoa farmers is protected, just like we have been able to demonstrate over the years. Mr. Alvin says that, cocoa board has been turned into a procurement, and so I agree with him. That over the years it was more about procurement. People procure jute sacks and jute bags, the one they have not even been able to clear at the port. We are still doing that, and that happened in the last 8 years. Never has that happened to that extent. And a new government comes and it suffers the consequences. But we are a responsible government. We will not pretend as if we don't know what is happening. We know what is happening. In fact, even in the NPP, they themselves knew that. They knew what was happening. And I've heard a lot of conversation about forward sales. They said that the NDC government was supposed to do forward sales. Did they not do forward sales in 2023 and 2024 and left us a rollover of 33,000? To a point where the syndication, cocoa syndication that we all know, forget about all the difficulties and non-desirability of it. But that is what we know over the years.
Yeah.
They failed to secure it because their books were not good.
True.
They destroyed the cocoa syndication, made sure that we roll onto a new model where it is more like a cash and carry. The buyer decides to tell you what amount of cocoa he needs. Because of that, after that, he will give you the money to go and buy. So how can you do a proper forest sales with this model? Cocoa board does not have any money on its own to buy cocoa. They need to sit down and wait for these buyers to bring their money to go and buy.
Right.
If you don't have a buyer, or a buyer is not interested in buying your cocoa, what kind of forest sales can you do? And so that argument that especially those in the NPP are making cannot hold water, because you are using a new modeling in financing cocoa. It's not like syndicated loan where you know that at the end of the day you get $2 billion, where you can project the amount or tonnage of cocoa you want to buy. For that reason, you can do your forward sales. But this one, you are using a buyer model, cash and carry. The buyer calls you today on Monday that I need 10,000 tons of cocoa. This is the money for the 10,000 tons of go and buy. How can you do forward sales with it? And they apostles of forward sales did forward sales in 2023, 2024, and made sure that there was a rollover of 33,000. Government had to cough in about $1 billion to augment it so that the cocoa sector does not collapse.
Right.
And so the argument is completely disjointed. They are not consistent. They are preaching as though they love cocoa farmers more than everybody. But under their tenure, they were the ones that gave lowest as far as percentages is concerned. I've heard the argument that they were the ones that increased it from 3,000 from 400 Ghana cedis to 3,100 over 8 years. When you divide it by 8 years, they were doing an average of about 400 Ghana cedis per year. We in 1 year did almost 500 Ghana cedis increment. So really, I mean, the argument is not consistent. I mean, we cannot hold any water, and I don't think that we should encourage conversations like this.
Very well, thank you. Ibrahim, yes, cocoa sector reforms, bailout, price slash, which is the way. And while we're at it, let's look at the reform on value addition and the processing of about 50% of our cocoa.
Okay. Nana, thank you very much for the opportunity once again to discuss this very important issue. Cocoa is indeed the soul of Ghana's economy. Elvis recounted as to why there was a law to make sure that the government had an interest in making sure that it was properly regulated, and so that the government or Ghana benefited from the proceeds thereof. If you have cocoa schools, cocoa roads, and all the other things, I'm talking from independence, still up until now, where cocoa was the driver. If you say that we've built Tama Motorway, we've built Valco, we've built all the buffer stock and the grain silos. The bulk of that, gold notwithstanding, is coming from cocoa. So government saw it as a strategic and important part of our economic mix and had to secure it. But I agree with Elvis in terms of what he said, 30%, but it's a tax. Who works and doesn't get taxed? The 30% you see is a tax. That notwithstanding, because if you export it by yourself, government will still tax you.
True.
But I largely agree with what Elvis said. Now we're talking about whether or not we should go for a bailout or this reset, to use their words. Dr. Ayers said that in his opening statement, he wants to sympathize with the cocoa farmers for this situation that John Mahama has put them in. I'll come to his points in a minute.
John Mahama put them in this situation.
The NDC government.
They did.
Did he not promise 6,000? Did Randy Abbey not say that is ahead of the opening season that they're going to pay 6,000? So if you're going to pay 6,000, why won't you hoard your prices? Why won't you hoard it? I think we also on Joy News File, what transpired there. If you say, I'm going to give you 10,000 cedis for this bottle of water, I won't drink it. Because I know that in October 2026, per your promise, I'm going to get 10,000 cedis. So can we blame the farmers for this? Let me be direct. Can we blame the farmers for being businessmen and women, given a promise that they have failed? On the campaign trail, they said 6,000 categorically. And now you're giving them 2,587. So why shouldn't farmers be aggrieved? You have over 800,000 Ghanaians, families, working in the cocoa sector. It represents 10% of our GDP. Billions in terms of export revenue. And then in terms of the wider economy of cocoa, you have logistics, you have transportation, those who are transporting it from the farms to Takrady, which is the main exit point, in addition to, of course, Tema. There's a whole ecosystem involved around cocoa.
Right.
And Dr. Aya wants to tell us that they love cocoa more than MPP or than Ghanaians themselves. Let's look at the history. And I'll start from Rawlings' time, briefly. What was the average crop yield there? 285,000 metric tons. Rawlings' time. The most they did was around 350,000 in the year 2000. MPP came under Kufuor. We doubled it to 750,000. Ask, how did we do that? With all the 19 years of Rawlings. How did we do that? We doubled it, the metric tons, to 750,000. Simple. We put the farmer first, which is what MPP does. You put the citizen first, not your own propaganda machinery first. There was mass spraying of cocoa, free. I'll come to the he's saying, were we not in this country when subsidy fertilizers were cancelled? Yeah, the free was cancelled and we subsidized, and you just paid 80 cedis. It was nominal. Why did we do the subsidy? Because they were smuggling outside to Burkina Faso. So the farmer himself or herself was not even getting the fertilizer. That is the reality. NDC know how to pick, they don't know how to sow. They know how to destroy, they don't know how to build. And I'm staying on point in terms of the cocoa sector here. Mass cocoa spraying under President Kufuor saw a huge leap. And then you found out in 2009, for the first time we topped 1 million, just over 1 million. It takes 5 years for a cocoa tree to grow and bear fruit, 5 years. We exited January 7th, 2009. 18 months later, you went up to 1 million. Did you grow 5 years worth of trees in 18 months, NDC? And I remember they were lauding it. Hey, look what we've done. Not recognizing the farmers who had been supported under President Kufuor. We also saw, in fact, a wholesale investment because we wanted to add value to the cocoa industry. CPC, which is Cocoa Processing Company. In Tema.
Yeah.
Before they were doing 110,000 metric tons of processing. That was the capacity. President Kufuor came in, the MPP came in, and we put our money where the mouths of the farmers are. And we expanded the cocoa processing company's capacity to produce the butter. When you get a nib of cocoa, that's where the butter is.
Yeah.
It's about 50% of it is the butter. So you need to put into a hydraulic press it, and you get the butter out. The butter is where the money is. And you get the liquor. Then the rest is where you get the cocoa powder, which they use for energy drinks and the Milo and the other things that we drink. NPP came and expanded the capacity of CPC. You had 19 years under Rawlings to do so. 0. That is where you see a government and a party invested in one of the key stakeholders of Ghana's economy, expanding CPC, Cocoa Processing Company, free mass spraying. Then come to Akufo-Addo's era. We started to make sure, again, by value addition, within the Tema-free zones, we made sure that local players were now in the mix, such as Olam and Niche, producing high-end confectionery. We took it, as I mentioned, from 13% processed cocoa. The money is in the processing, not the raw beans. Under NDC, they didn't pay any attention to the farmer. 13% was what we're doing. We shot it all the way up to 34% we're enjoying now. 34% of the raw cocoa beans are processed in Ghana thanks to the NPP. Because you want to add value not only to the commodity and to Ghana. So how do we take it from they were paying 420 cedis per bag under NDC. John Mahama, the most you paid for 425 cedis. This is a 64 kilogram bag.
This is JM1.
JM1, 2015, 2016. For the 64 kilogram bag. Call Lea Botwe. If you don't hear, listen. And and to his credit, doctor said yes, on average, they were paying 400 and something. And then we shot it up to 800 cedis, and then to 2,100, and then the 3,100, and under President Akufo-Addo. So when he was saying that, yes, the price increased, and you were only getting this much, we were on parity with Cote d'Ivoire. We established a partnership with Cote d'Ivoire, because NPP and Cote d'Ivoire, or Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire said, no, why should these foreigners take advantage? We produce it, and they take advantage. As I say, and that's where the NDC are. GHOC. What was GHOC supposed doing?
GHOC Distilleries.
No, it's not GHOC. Yes, under GHOC, but the Kumasi Jute Factory.
Right.
Started by Nkrumah. Who sold it? Abenon, NDC. Under the Divestiture Implementation Committee, DIC.
Yeah.
They sold Ghana Films, which is now what we call TV3. And the whole array, Black Star Line, they have decimated Ghana's economy. You laugh. Those who died under your regimes are not laughing. The poverty we experience because of your mismanagement are not laughing. Continue to laugh, Dr. Aye. I am not laughing. The Ghanaian cocoa farmers, you say you're sympathizing with them, they are seeing you laugh right now on this show.
Why are you being petty?
Oh, petty. When people are being given a haircut from your 6,000 to 2,500, is it petty? Is it petty? I beg. Don't be petty on this program with the livelihoods of Ghanaians. These are people's livelihoods. When they grow broke, your petty won't take them out of poverty. So, again, why did I mention the Kumasi
The
jute factory? You dismantled it. And what did President Akufo-Addo do? Let me give you the date. 2020. Together with Otumfuo, the Asantini, they started a jute factory, and you know the material is KENAF, K-E-N-A-F. In 2020, at 2020, they're about 30% complete. Now to get the machinery inside. Because again, Akufo-Addo saw the vision, MPP saw the vision, that look, this cocoa industry has to be holistic. Why are we giving $50 million every year to Bangladesh and to India to do the jute sacks? And we started doing it ourselves. I'm giving you the date, 2020. So as I always say, as I talk, please fact check. I think it's Bonaku, maybe my pronunciation is wrong, but the company belonging to the Asantehene, or he has a stake in the company, is Bonkundan. When I come for the next round, I'll quickly research it. But I'm saying, you can see the NPP's vision, holistic, making sure that the industry that they profess to love is properly revitalized. I've mentioned CPC, Cocoa Processing Company, expanding the capacity to actually process the butter. When Kufuor also came in, you had Cargill, and then Barry Callebaut, the French company, coming in to also be off-takers. But let me give credit to President Rawlings. He started the EPZs, the Economic Processing Zones in Tema. 1995. That policy created the incentive for companies to come into the Tema-free zones and start also engaging with the economy so you can process cocoa butter and sell it. So let me give credit to President Rawlings in 1995. He gave, let's say, the infrastructure to attract. President Kufuor then made sure that there was the legal and also the practical inputs and making sure that not only were we mass spraying and making sure that we expanded the infrastructure to process the cocoa, butter, and the liquor. And then under President Akufo-Addo, we started hand pollination. No problem. We started hand pollination. And you saw how a cocoa tree, something you get a pod, will give you 200. A tree will give you 20 pods per tree. When Joseph Eduboahin, the CEO, and he is somebody who is an agronomist, see how we put square pegs in square holes and round pegs in round holes. Joseph Eduboahin, the former CEO of Cocoa Board, is an agronomist. That's his job. Over 45 years in that field.
But is Cocoa Board necessarily for the agric or the marketing?
It's for the agric. It's a combination. You have your marketers, but you want somebody who knows the products, who knows that indeed these are the new technologies, these are the new saplings. It was Cuba, Liberia, and Cote d'Ivoire. Not Cote d'Ivoire. Cuba, Liberia, and one other country, which then came to Ghana under MPP, under Akufo-Addo, to take the saplings that we are doing so that they can also replicate it there. I think it's one country, if not Cuba, another country in Africa. Again, I'll fact check when my colleagues come to do that. Why am I giving you these other necessary and factual information? To see how the NPP thinks critically about the cocoa sector. You can't take it from 425 cedis a bag. The last price John Mahama gave to 2,100 and then 3,100.
Over a period of 8 years.
Over a period of time. I mean, over 8 years. They were in power for 8 years before with mills. What happened there? What happened under them? You're talking about mismanagement of the cocoa sector. Rather look at how you have mismanaged the promises and the sector in its entirety. And figures don't lie. How is it that in 2020, for the record, Ghana produced 1.05 million metric tons of cocoa, the highest, surpassing the 2011 that was achieved under Atta Mills. It's not by accident, it's by design.
Right.
And clear investment. Now, you're saying that you can't afford to pay the farmers what you promised them. What is the total quantum of the haircuts? You have around 450,000 bags yet unsold. Okay? If you times it by the haircut of 1,068 cedis, from the 3,000 to the 2,587. I'm not even looking at the 6,000 that they promised. It comes to around $860 million, or 7.64 billion Ghana cedis at the current rate. So you have to look at cocoa as a whole economy and say, can I afford this 860 million to support the cocoa farmer? Because the value chain of cocoa is so much more than 860 million. You had the opportunity to exit the IMF, and then you rather extended the facility. I'm talking NDC, now extending in April of next year. You spent $10 billion of gold for reserves that MPP created and initiated under Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia. The gold for reserves. Taken from zero, that the Bank of Ghana was not buying gold. We took it to 30 tons. You sold 18 tons. The value is around $10 billion to support the city. I just gave you an example of $860 million. And said, do you know what? Business-wise, let us use some of these reserves, the gold reserves, and support the cocoa farm or cocoa sector. Since we failed in our promises. Because NDC is promise and fail across board. They've been in power for a year now. How many jobs have they created? They should come and tell us. Right now, we know that 800,000 jobs under cocoa farmers are right now on edge. They're talking about 2027 season. Do you think we'll see 2027? Elvis was on point when he mentioned that. Why should I, as a farmer, be handcuffed to a government policy? Why not smuggle to Cote d'Ivoire? They have every right to. It's illegal. Why not change the cocoa into palm oil? Why not change it into sorghum? Why not change it into corn? As in millet and maize? Because that is what is going to happen. if I'm not getting the requisite dividend from investing my hard-earned sweat into this cocoa sector,
very well,
that for decades NDC have done nothing to do in terms of improving. And I've just given you a whole litany, a chronology, dates, times, amounts, and figures where NPP under President Kufuor, under President Akufo-Addo, have invested heavily in this sector, and it has yielded amazing results.
Thank you. Thank you.
And you have local Ghanaian companies like Niche, 100% Ghanaian owned. And again, Asante Hini is still laughing. No, we are not laughing. Investing in the jute factory. This is the Ghana that we want. This is the Ghana that NPP continually serves. And when NDC come in, they destroy.
Very well.
Your time is up. Actually, what, 2 years, 10 months to 2027. We're waiting.
Very well. Okay, briefly, the issue about the cocoa farmer not being made to take their hit. That our prices now are not competitive on the international market. If you listen to the explanation from Randy Abu, currently our prices are costing more, and so international buyers are looking.
Cocoa has always been premium cocoa. Yes. Our cocoa always sells higher than any cocoa on the international market.
So now our buyers are looking elsewhere for alternative markets.
It is nothing new. But the truth of the matter is that they buy ours to mix with the lower grade from other countries to get the quality chocolate and products they need. So Ghana's cocoa is invaluable. No chocolate maker, no processor can do without Ghana's cocoa. That is the truth. And they themselves admit that is why there's a premium on Ghana cocoa. Because if you do any cocoa product without Ghana cocoa in it, the quality is an issue of question. So Ghana's cocoa is not expensive today. It hasn't been expensive. Look, Nana, see, the truth of the matter is that, as I've said, NDC and NPP have mismanaged the cocoa sector through cocoa board. Every complaint Randy and the NDC is making today that NPP has left them, they did the same thing in 2017. In 2016, they went for 1.8 billion syndicated loan to buy cocoa. When NPP took over and they did accounts, the 1.8 billion was gone. It was supposed to buy cocoa worth over 850,000 metric tons. They bought less than 600,000 metric tons. NPP was left with 355,000 metric tons of cocoa to buy, though the money has been exhausted. So if today they are making claim that there's a rollover, in 2017, NDC also left the same rollover. That's why I'm saying that cocoa board as an institution has become just a procurement center for people to make money, and the farmer suffers. Okay, cocoa rose 2017. Over almost $4 billion of 4 billion Ghana cedis of cocoa debt was led by the NDC. It's on record. It is not so. Today they are talking about cocoa rose debt. It is nothing new. In 2017, when they handed over to NPP, the same situation. Everything that NDC is complaining that NPP has left them today, they left same in 2016. That's why I'm saying that cocoa board as an institution, we need to pay attention to it. If we are doing the NDC NPP football, there's issues that the NPP took over in 2017 and make all the complaints about. It's the same thing that the NDC taking over for NPP today is complaining about. So the issue is not about NDC. The issue is that there are fundamental issues that both parties have not been able to address. And that if we don't focus and address those issues, cocoa board will continue to be a drain on the cocoa farmer. Because all they need is to get the cocoa farmers their money and use it anyhow and leave all kinds of debt. And because cocoa board is 100% owned by government, any debt accrued over there is accruing for the people of Ghana to pay again. After taking cocoa farmers their money and misusing it, then the Ghana government will now have to sink money into it again. In 2017, the NPP has to go for over 2.2 billion at that time to be able to buy the remaining 355,000 cocoa metric tons. Though the 1.8 billion from the syndicated money has been exhausted. In fact, 300 million was withdrawn after NDC lost the elections because they have to pay contractors who supplied things for cocoa board because they know they are going. So there are people who did the supply, they have to pay them. So though there was $300 million in the account after they lost the election, they quickly withdrew the 300 million and paid the people who supplied to cocoa board so that people can have money while the farmer is struggling. So you see, when we are talking about cocoa board and NDC will come and talk their own people, the truth is that everything that they are talking about today, the NPP made the same complaints when they also took over in 2017 that these are the situations that the NDC left them. In 2017, NDC left the debt over 10 billion Ghana cedis at Cocoa Board. Over 10 billion debt was what NPP inherited at Cocoa Board when they took over in 2017. Today we are talking about 32 billion. So it means that the debt was just growing. Okay, so let's be realistic. I hear talks about let's get CPC to process 50%. Please, if you don't know what it is, excuse me, I think the president needs people to tell him the truth. As rightly said by Ibrahim, President Kufuor thought that we need to process more cocoa. We spent money to expand the capacity of cocoa processing.
CPC.
Ever since we expanded their capacity, they were still doing their old capacity. They have never gone beyond their old capacity. It means that the money we invested to even expand the company was waste. And they keep piling up debt upon debt. Go and check the debt of CPC. President Mahama said we will process local. If it's private companies that will come in and process more, fine. But CPC is not a solution. Go and check the debt that CPC owes Cocoa Board for being supplied to CPC to produce. They produce, sold the product, and they can't pay Cocoa Board for the money. CPC is highly indebted to Cocoa Board for cocoa beans given to them to process, and they can't pay for the money. So if you say you are going to expand, make CPC process more, please don't go there. You can say that maybe private companies will come in and will process more of our cocoa. That will be profitable.
Right.
But CPC, which is government owned, which is highly indebted to Cocoa Board, you want to increase the indebtedness because no matter what we have done since President Kufuor's time by expanding their capacity, giving them modern machines, and thinking that with that they can do more, they have never exceeded their own capacity. So the new capacity that President Kufuor added to CPC came to nothing.
Right.
Dr. I talked about the cocoa price going up and down. You see, let's be realistic. I have explained that when we are talking about average price, it is the prices throughout the year put together and the average decided. In the year he was talking about, the average, despite the 10,000 and the 7,000, the average was $4,200. And that is what is used to do the pricing in terms of farm gate price for the producer price for the cocoa. So nobody did anything untoward because that was the arrangement. If the NDC is coming and they think that they won't do forward sales, they want to do spot sales, then they should explain that they are doing spot sales. So they should let the farmer also understand that spot sales means that if the price comes to 100 cedis today, it is 70% of 100 cedis you get. If the price goes to 10,000, you get it. They should explain. They shouldn't create the impression for the farmer to think that they are going to be getting any form of risk protection. At the same time, the price will be increased anytime it goes up. That's not how it works. You are either doing spot sales or you are doing forward sales. So let the farmer understand, because what we have done is to go and buy from the farmer under forward sales. And then when Cocoa Board want to sell, because they want to make money, they want to do 70 or 60 or 70% of the sales under forward sales, and they keep about 30% hoping that price will go up, and then they will make money from spot sales. That doesn't affect the cocoa farmer. Right. So if we are coming for a new policy, to say that by the new policy, we are going to do like maybe those who import fuel into the country, that when today the price goes up by $5, automatically if LBC has gone to meet somebody to buy the cocoa that day, they to sell it at the new price. You don't sit down and say you are going to announce farm gate price, and then you want to wait after 3 months before you say, oh, a thing has gone up. No, that's how it should be. Right. So this new policy and this is bringing, I'm advising them that it is important that they come clear that from now on there's no longer going to be any forward sales. Government is taking a decision to do only spot sales. But if government takes the decision to do a spot sale, how is it going to work? Is there any risk mitigation in there for the farmer? If there's no risk mitigation in there, is there any justification why Cocoa Board should still be keeping 30% of the cocoa farmer's money? All these issues must be made clear, because if there's not going to be risk mitigation for the farmer, then the Cocoa Board keeping 30% of the price should also be reviewed. Because you can't be keeping 30%, and then when there's a risk, the farmer take the entire hit. If the farmer will take the entire hit, then the farmer must also take the entire benefit. But you cannot deny the farmer the entire benefit and keep part of the money. But when there is a hit, you want the farmer to take the entire hit. That will be completely a rip-off of the farmer. So if the government is coming up with a new policy, let's explain that policy to the farmer very well. Because if cocoa price should go to 10,000 tomorrow, and you come and tell the cocoa farmer that you pay him 5,000, there will be chaos in the country. And as we are saying, these things can derail confidence in the farmer, and the entire cocoa industry will be gone.
Collapse.
And then the cocoa industry is gone. Look, one of the key supports of our city is the cocoa. Especially when we do syndicated loan.
Right.
You talk about now they want to do bonds, the bonds. Let me come to that. The bond is similar to what the NPP did. The NPP said that the interest rate on the syndicated loan is about 7 or 8%. So when you go and take the money, the interest on the syndicated is almost about $100 and $150 million every year. So why not rather raise the money locally so that interest you are paying to foreign banks should not be there? But what the NPP didn't do is the bond that this current government want to do.
Or what the NPP didn't tell us is that cocoa board was not credit worthy and so cannot go on.
No, aside even the credit worthy. No, it's not about credit worthiness. If you pay the interest rate, you can get cocoa syndicated loan. Because the point is, if your books are not credit worthy, what means is that your risk is higher, so the interest rate goes higher. So it may have moved from 8 to 10 or 11%, because they know that the cocoa definitely you are producing it. So if you pay the higher interest rate, you get it. But the higher interest rate means that your ability to get the money, you have to pay more.
Very well.
So what the NPP did was that the buyers should rather look for money and buy the cocoa themselves. But the NDC say that okay, they will rather raise the bond and give them. So that's only the difference. But if we are saving, if both policies are saving us maybe $100 to $150 million we pay to foreign banks for financing the cocoa sector. If we can raise the money locally, why not?
Thank you, Elvis. Thank you, Elvis. Doc, I'll come to you. I'll come to you briefly. Okay. I need to take a break here. Okay. Please bear with me. Let me take a quick break. This is Breakfast Daily on Channel One Television. Stay with us. When we come back, we hear from Doc and Ibrahim, and then we'll move on to other matters. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Breakfast Daily on Channel One Television. We're having the news review segment. I'm going to go to Dr. Ayer for his final comments on this cocoa matter. But a few quick messages. This one from Kete in Kaswa says, processing our cocoa and gold locally is key to job creation and economic growth. Instead of exporting raw materials, Ghana must invest in value addition such as chocolate production, gold refining, and jewelry manufacturing. This will create employment, increase revenue, support farmers and miners, and strengthen our industrial base. It is time to move from exporting raw resources to exporting finished products. Okay. Kojo in Peki says, Nana, until we see some outcome from oral, NDC cannot convince anyone of the mismanagement of the previous government. Thanks. Good morning, Mr. Host. The NPP have used cocoa revenue to support national budgets in the past while increasing borrowing through syndicated loans. This is why Cocoa Board is heavily indebted. If you ask for their recommendation this time, they say we, the NDC, should go for more loans. Laughable. Tell the NPP to take notes from the NDC. Okay. Thank you, Elvis, for your thoughtful analysis. You clearly have a strong grasp of the dynamics within the industry. Empowering the private sector to scale up local processing will significantly unlock the full value potential of the cocoa industry. However, one of the key constraints remains the local sourcing policy, which currently appears to favor multinational companies over indigenous enterprises. The minimum requirement of 50 metric tons, for instance, effectively sidelines artisanal chocolatiers and emerging local confectionery businesses, limiting innovation and inclusive growth within the sector. If the average Ghanaian fully understood the structural dynamics of the cocoa industry, there would likely be greater public concern about the degree of autonomy exercised by Ghana Cocoa Board and how its policies shape value distribution across the sector. Doc, so yeah, let me come to you, take a response.
Yes,
and then
I have a lot of response, but I know because of the time I will not be able to do it.
Right.
Mr. Elvis said we couldn't get, we didn't go for syndicated loan because the interests were high. Interests have always been high since we started getting syndicated loan. The reason is that Cocoa Board books was not good for syndicated loan. Mind you, they had done restructuring of cocoa bills through the domestic debt exchange program. Any investor that wants to invest in Cocoa Board will look just at the restructuring of cocoa bills to say that this country is not a serious country. This country cannot pay his debt. That's why they didn't get syndicated loan, not because they don't like syndicated loan. So that they go, they didn't get in 2022, 2023. Let me tell you for a fact, the cocoa season opened somewhere around September. Yeah. Syndicated loan didn't come until ending of December. To a point where January, that was when buyers got the money. So right from the get-go, they were losing confidence on the part of international buyers, such that they were not worthy of getting syndicated loan. Number two, Mr. Alvin says that NDC government also left over 300,000 metric tons of cocoa. The same thing NP had done in 2017. That was not true. Look, the Dr. Isaac Opoku, who is the member of parliament for Finso, ranking member on food
agricultural affairs.
He held a press conference. Your City News published it. Today is 16th.
Yeah.
6 days ago, it was 190,000. At the time, we were looking at about 1 million metric tons. The cocoa experts know that it is acceptable to have a rollover within about 5 to 10 to 15% rate. It's normal. But when you have a rate as rate, or you are deviating about 45%, that is what is unacceptable. And you wanted to generalize and say that, oh, NDC also left 4 billion of cocoa rows. Has he told us what Kufuor's government also left? From that time to 2017, he says it's 4 billion. But you are comparing it to a government that within only 3 years accumulates 21 billion debt in cocoa rows. Who is saying that it is not acceptable for institutions to accrue debt? Even in developed countries, they accrue debt. But when in 3 years you accrue 21 billion, that is the problem we are talking about. You understand? So that lumping everyone together, playing the card as if all everyone is bad, that is it does not make the argument genuine. My brother said that, oh, the NDC government has gone to sell gold at Bank of Ghana 18 tons. Master, do you know Bank of Ghana? This is ChannelOne. It is a big platform. Bank of Ghana has a policy they call reserve management strategy. They diversify their interest, diversify their international reserves. International reserves are in the form of gold, foreign currencies, oil funds, and what have you. At any point in time, Bank of Ghana decides, looking at their forecast, looking at their trends, which of the reserves they need to keep. In fact, internationally, it is acceptable that gold as a part of international reserves should range about 10 to 20%. But Ghana's gold reserves reach as high as 43% of our total international reserves. When the Bank of Ghana did that diversification, I can tell you that the next day, gold prices came down by 4.5%. $3 billion was lost on the international market. Imagine if that gold was there. And when the Bank of Ghana diversified the gold asset, they did not go and chop the money in their mouths. They invested in foreign fixed deposits and other things. I can tell you that Ghana's local domestic gold program will make sure that in the next coming weeks, our gold reserve will go as the same tonnage. Almost about 40 tons. So when you come and sit on a platform and do the usual MPP roadside propaganda, come and say the NDC has sold 18 tons. What kind of analysis is this? Again, he said that, oh, President under Rawlings, we were doing cocoa production of 280,000 to 380,000. It was Kufuor that sent it to 700,000. Have you forgotten that Mills also sent it to almost 1 million? What did President Kufuor leave us? You inherit a cocoa tonnage of 960,000 metric tons and leave us 432,000. Then you come and sit on a platform and deride the NDC government. You understand the point? He says that, oh, President Mama was giving 400 Ghana cedis and the Kufuor sent it to 3,100. What was Kufuor giving? If President Mahama was giving 400, then Kufuor was doing about 200 Ghana cedis per bag. That analysis he has not been able to make. He says that, oh, under President Kufuor, they were producing jute and what have you. So why were they importing the jute sacks? If you were producing jute in Ghana, why were they importing jute sacks? You see, the argument is disjointed. He says that, oh, they only did subsidy on fertilizers because people were smuggling it. Everyone was smuggling fertilizers in Ghana. Everyone was doing that. It is because you did not care about cocoa farmers. You were not giving them fertilizers. You were not giving them seedlings. You were doing all manner of things to a point where your tonnage had to decrease from 960,000 to 432,000. Then you come and sit on a platform and deride a government that left you 960,000. He says that, oh, they developed cocoa processing company. Mr. Elvis rightly said that, but the cocoa processing company has been down
did not
in debt.
materialize.
Yes. Yes. So all these things are not true. Oh, NDC government impoverished the people of Ghana cocoa farmers. Master, are you in this country? That in 2022 to 2024, over 850,000 were pushed below the poverty line because of your government's domestic debt exchange program. over 100 billion Ghana cedis for middle class people like you and him and my brother Elvis.
Please, I'm not middle class.
Who saved their money in banks? Who saved their money in banks? The government told us that they did not care a hoot. They have taken the money. They will not pay the interest. They will pay the interest in about 15 years' time.
It was a necessary evil.
People had to picket at finance ministry. I know a certain lecturer who taught me in medical school, occupational health. He told us that as a doctor, you need to save your money. You must not live lavishly. The man saved his money, went and bought bonds. The last time I saw him, he was sitting in front of finance ministry begging that they should not include his bonds.
Right.
Your government did it. And you have the effort to come and sit on TV and say that people are impoverished. Which government impoverished the people of Ghana more than Kufado's government, which you were a part of? You understand? So clearly, a lot of wrongs have been occasioned over the past few years. There is a dawn of a new beginning. President Mama said that he wants to develop or enhance value addition of cocoa in Ghana. We have to deviate from the path that we have always been on. And that because of syndicated loan alone, we could not have a situation where we locally process our cocoa. Now let us raise local bonds and process our cocoa in Ghana.
Right.
We are having a situation where President Mahama is going to Parliament. He's not just saying it too. They are presenting a new cocoa board bill where 70% of the price will be accrued to farmers, so that whichever way it happens, cocoa farmers have 70% of it
guaranteed.
And you are criticizing that government. When you came in, cocoa board did not have any budget for cocoa rows. They made sure that 21 billion was debt in cocoa rows was accrued in 3 years. Imagine that money. Imagine finance ministry came into government and this debt was not there. Do you know the amount of money that the finance ministry could have used to cushion cocoa farmers?
Right.
All this have happened. You don't want to talk about it, and you come and lament that President Rawlings' time. The problem we have today is not Rawlings' time or Kwame Nkrumah's time. It is because the last 8 years you have turned around the fortunes of cocoa board in a negative way. You came and made cocoa board a positive equity of 1.8 billion. Look at where you left cocoa board, and you don't want us to talk about it. You are blaming the government that is actually putting in place measures to save cocoa farmers. So for me, I know things are hard. Nobody expected this to happen. We showed fidelity and we showed that we care about the price of cocoa farmers. From what we did in 2025 coming, there's a difficulty. Government has put in place structures to restructure, reform, review cocoa board, and make sure that going forward, the cocoa board that we need, that was a strong defense of our economy, will now become the strong defense of our country.
Thank you.
And our economy, the way and manner we expect it to be.
Thank you. Ibrahim,
Nana,
final thoughts.
Clearly, Doc wasn't listening. He was not listening to anything that I said. But Ghanaians are listening. You're talking about impoverishment of the economy. Have we forgotten the incompetence of John Dramani Mahama? When you were voted out in 2016, was it because the economy was doing well? Was it because suddenly we didn't have unemployed graduates association? If I'm going back into history, it's purely to showcase and explain how. Because he started his whole presentation that he sympathizes with the cocoa farmers, that they're going through tough times, that they have rather been the supporters of the cocoa industry. And I gave the historical facts to debunk the lies that Dr. Aya was saying. It's important, and I gave credit to Rawlings, just to be fair in my summary. But the reality is this: which administration has really invested in the cocoa sector? And it is clearly not the NDC. When I talked about jute sacks, you see where he said, why are we importing? In your 19 years, what did you do? Leave the 19 years for even of Rawlings. In the Mills administration, tell me what you did to really revamp, invest, and make sure that you add value to the cocoa sector. It's true. We had the economic crisis in the latter part of President Akufo-Addo's administration. I don't think anybody will tell you otherwise. But you got to look in terms of the cocoa sector, what did we do? How is it that farmers, and these are the best people to tell you where they're feeling the pinch. He who wears the shoe tells you where it pinches. And you sit here on this national platform trying to poo-poo what actually happened under your administration. whereby, and you're telling me that we've cancelled subsidy. Sorry, the free fertilizers. The reality is this: if people are selling, or rather smuggling, the fertilizer, you put in solutions to curb it. That's what any sane government would do. And you saw the reality in terms of what happened. When I mentioned, for example, excuse me. Now when I mentioned example, that we took the metric ton to 1.05 million metric tons in the 2020 season. Refute that if you can. That is what? Increased income in production and for the cocoa farmers. We're sitting here looking at the raw data. MPP has looked at it holistically. It's the Bondu Kwan jute factory, the one I mentioned, owned by Asante Hini, otherwise known as the Royal Jute Factory. Then there's another one also called Kotoku factory. These are interventions that the NPP put in. You know, the NPP are so, NDC are so myopic. They don't see the full picture. And when you look at how Ghana's economy has grown, over 200, one district, one factory interventions, of which the Bondu Kwan jute factory is one of them that I mentioned. Yes, we were importing jute factories still, because your government sat on its bum, sat on its behind, and did nothing in that area. So when I'm recounting, you say you're giving us a long history, because Ghanaians don't have short memories, as you and John Mahama, President Mahama would have us believe. We are talking about something that is so clear in terms of Ghana's economy. We're talking the cocoa sector. And a certain administration, which is the MP administration, has put both effort and policy into making sure that we add value there. Elvis is 100% right to say that, yes, we've expanded the processing, but it's indebted. That does not take away from the fact that from 13% processing capacity to the 34% processing capacity that we have now, you can't do that, do away with it.
Right.
Because it's largely private.
Yes,
processors coming in.
Sure,
not CPC.
I understand that.
Increasing the
processing
capacity.
I understand.
But CPC has not.
Good.
Even though the investments were made.
The point that I made was that CPC expanded its capacity from 110,000 metric tons to 400,000 metric tons of processing capacity.
Yes. That's just increased capacity,
yes,
but did not meet it.
That could not make
that I can't speak to that, but I'm telling you the reality. But indeed, it is the private sector who is the major off-taker.
Right.
Niche, Olam, Barry Callebaut, they're the major off-takers. And so for government to say that, yes, we want to increase, make sure that 50% of the raw beans is processed before any other is sold, is a step in the right direction. True. But I'm telling you where we were and where we came from. Right. From 13% to 34%, give that credit to the NPP. Where in fact you see that there's and I say the best person, I will speak my NPP, he will speak his NDC. And Elvis will do his best to be in the middle. But the cocoa farmer, Nana, is the best person to discuss this issue and tell you where they have enjoyed better, whether under NPP or and the NDC. And so giving you the holistic audits or chronology of where investment has gone, everybody watching now will say that, yes, Ibrahim Ajay, you're right.
Right.
You, when I say you, NPP have fully invested in this sector over the years, and we continue doing so.
Very well. Very
no,
well.
so no matter what you say, it won't wash with those who really know where it pinches. You promise them 6,000, then you want to come and hoodwink the farmers, and so, Mr. Mepalmacho, I can only give you 2,500. The cocoa farmers will remember very well.
Very well,
come 2028.
Thank you. We have a few minutes to go. Let's touch on this issue of terrorist attacks and Ghanaian tomato traders being caught in the crossfire. Let's look at the impact on trade, transportation, and security around our borders.
I've always been wondering how our traders will be able to go to Burkina Faso and come back, because if you monitor the international landscape, you realize that the place is very volatile. In fact, just last week, the rebels and the government forces actually clashed, and over 100 people were killed, both rebels and soldiers. So when I hear that our people still go there, and I'm like, hey, are they going with some form of security protection, or they are only doing their normal trade? And this is why we must all see how what is happening in our neighboring country can have an impact on all of us. Because most of our fresh tomato comes from there. So you see the impact of that. That's why we all need to unite in the sub-region and fight this jihadist group, because what they are doing is to ensure that nothing happens in the sub-region, and everybody will be affected, because when you get things from, you trade with them. So if there is this kind of thing, now a woman who wants to go there and bring tomato is scared. Somebody wants to go to Nigeria and go and bring the onion is scared. And this is why we must look at the things from the perspective of after and security. I've always said that if the continent will prosper, we need peace, because once there is insecurity, it affects economic activity, and that is what it is. So I only hope and pray that Ghana and the neighboring country can find a very smooth way, or the way we can support them. See, this is why they left ECOWAS. They were expecting ECOWAS to come to their aid to fight these jihadists, and ECOWAS did not support. And that is why now they are all trying to do things. I believe that if we all don't unite and support these countries to be able to suppress these jihadists, none of us is safe. Nobody is safe in the sub-region.
Right.
And that is why I think that every Ghanaian should be worried that we are having serious problems with our neighbors. And if our government is to put in any form of support, we will not turn into politics and then make it an NDC and MPP issue. Because what is happening there has nothing to do with NDC. If it spill over to Ghana, it will not know NDC and MPP.
Yeah. Very well, Doc.
Yes, I think I also heard the issue yesterday. And I've seen a statement from the
Interior Ministry
and the government about it. I think that this is clearly a security matter. So as for the security side, I will not go there, because clearly a national security matter. I believe necessary interventions and investigations will go on. Government will take necessary action, the way and manner that will benefit the state. Just like my brother Ovis rightfully said, in Penjufo say, will be about the same today it is market women, tomorrow it can be spare part dealers. Today it is Burkina, tomorrow it can be Togo, it can be Ivory Coast and Benin and what have you. It means that as a country we need to put in place measures, and that's why I'm happy about President Mahamad's initiative to create a certain relationship with this Sahel region, so that Ghana and Ghanaians will be protected. I know about its trade, manifestations and repercussions. There are so many things that we import from other countries. This one, I don't know whether I should call it importation, because it's from another country. Yes, it's still importation. Onion, fish, and what have you. Clearly not something that we should be happy about. It has untold, effects on our prices and what have you. I know that going forward, measures will be put in place regarding that, so that we can avert it. I've heard a lot of comments from these traders, clearly not in a good light, and I'm hoping that we will not have a situation like this going forward.
Well, Ibrahim, we're surrounded by countries that are having these challenges, and if we're not careful, the ocean might be our only refuge. How do we go about this and its impacts? Business, trade, even food security. Because if our traders now harbor the fear and can no longer go and bring in food, where do we stand?
Good. You remember some weeks ago, we were talking about the coup that had happened in Benin.
Yeah.
And how Nigeria came in.
The attempted coup.
The attempted coup.
On the King of Cotton.
Yeah. Well, it was a coup. The fact that it didn't last, but the coup happened. An attempted coup is when you're planning and then you're caught planning. Good. But it happened. And then you had
this one was foiled.
Foiled.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It wasn't successful.
But
I'm coming.
It did not even happen at all. But this one, it does appear that.
No, it happened. I mean,
So unsuccessful.
Yes.
yeah, no, to all intents and purposes.
Okay,
If you can
Successful but unsustainable.
to all intents and purposes, if you can
A
come
short-lived
on
coup.
to all intents and purposes, if you can come on state TV and announce that you've taken over, then it's a coup, because you didn't do it on your iPhone. You did it on the stage. It's like capturing GBC.
Exactly.
And say we take, so it happened. Let's be direct with the reality. And what did Nigeria do? They came in and supported.
True.
They put in 6 F-1 fighter jets, and they helped, and they did what the ECOWAS protocols demanded. And remember, I made my submission on that.
Yeah.
I'm answering your question. What can we do? Otherwise, the ocean will only be our refuge. Until and unless ECOWAS as a body, and they can also co-opt in the AU. Because when things are happening in Sudan, do our men and women not go there?
Yeah.
When things are happening in Lebanon, outside of Africa, do our men and women not go there?
They do.
To either keep the peace or enforce the peace. We've been seeing these insurgencies, these terrorists in the Sahelian regions all this while, which has in fact led to, when I say led to, instigated and supported Ibrahim Traore's rise to power, because that was the key reason that they wanted to take over, because they were seeing inertia on part of government in tackling the insurgents, the terrorists.
Yeah.
So what, and somehow it's like ECOWAS were quiet. Everybody is watching as observers and not putting all our efforts to help Burkina Faso. We saw what happened, I think it's 2022, 2023. It was an incursion in Côte d'Ivoire, the northern part of Côte d'Ivoire. We comment without acting. I'm talking ECOWAS. So now answering your question, Nana Tufo, what do we do? ECOWAS has to take this directly and see that an attack on one is an attack on all. Because once you do that holistically, with the full complement of ECOWAS's military might, we are 520 million people in this region. And you have, I don't know the numbers, but let's say at 100,000, 200,000 terrorists across the Sahelian regions. ECOWAS, are you observers, or actually do you have the teeth and the will to actually tackle this like you're engaging? It's not Burkina Faso's war, it's our war.
Right.
And when you do that, then you can bring sanity so that people can do the trading of tomatoes from Burkina Faso and vice versa easily. So that's the answer.
Ibrahim, thank you. Dr. Samiaye, thank you. Elvis Dako, thank you. Thank you also for joining us and for sending in your comments and your contributions. This has been the News Review segment on Breakfast Daily.